All right, Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
So we are going to start off in Genesis chapter 25, verse 27. So let me ask you all a question. What manner of person are you? Are you a good person? I see you twisting your lips. He's like, this is set up.
Try
to be good.
You try to be good, okay. What manner of person are you? Tell me something about yourself. What traits do you have?
Trustworthy.
Trustworthy. What do you exhibit? What else do you exhibit? He's trustworthy. He tries to be good. What else we got?
Strive for righteousness.
He strives for righteousness. It's very important the way you phrase these things.
That's right.
What else? Come on, what else we got?
Dependable.
He's dependable. What else?
Honest.
Honest. My question for you is this. How do you know? How do you know?
So you should know the tree by its fruit.
Okay, so does the tree say, I'm an apple tree?
But it is apple.
What does the tree say? Oh, we know we're not trees, but let's just put ourselves into nature for a second and just picture this. A tree is planted, a seed is planted. That tree begins to sprout up. What can you imagine it said? Do you think it's going to say, I'm an apple tree?
It just is.
It doesn't say, but whoever look up on it can see it's an apple tree.
It just is what it is. And it's going to produce what it is that it's supposed to produce. And it is those who look upon it is what's going to identify and establish what it actually is. That's how you can get a good gauge of what manner of person you are. It's by those who are around you, how they identify you. Because a lot of us can say a lot of things about us, but if you begin to ask those who have been in contact with us and connected to us, then you get a different idea, because it's not always the same.
That's right.
It's not a apples to apples comparison.
No pun intended.
All right? Yeah, no pun intended. So now let me ask you this. I'm sure you all read the narrative. Jacob, our forefather, surnamed Israel. What kind of person was he? What kind of man was Jacob? Righteous. Said he was righteous. Was he?
Yes.
I'm not asking trick questions.
Yes.
I'm just clarifying. You said I'm just
He was perfect in
clarifying.
all his ways.
He was perfect in all his ways. Let's look at this real quick. Can I have you read Genesis 25, verse 27?
All right, Genesis 25, verse 27. And the boys grew, and Esau was a cunning hunter, a man of the field, and Jacob was a plain man, dwelling in tents.
All right, so what can y'all extract just from that little verse right there? What can y'all extract about Esau and Jacob? Start with Esau.
Esau was more active.
He's more active. Okay, that's good. What else?
They have two different personalities.
They have two different personalities. Two completely different personalities. Is that good or bad?
Nah.
Neither. He said it's neither. It just is what it is. What the text is doing right now is it's just describing the best things about each individual. You can identify what it is from that point, right? So it says that Esau was a cunning, right? That word there is really saying he's a skillful hunter. And when you look at the Hebrew word, I don't remember what the Hebrew word is, but I remember what it means. And it's the same word that's used when in the garden when the Most High, when they're talking, And they're saying that now he shall know the difference between good and evil. So it is to know, it's the ability to perceive. It's almost like an awareness, right? So what it's saying right now with Esau is that this person, given this awareness, this ability to perceive in the wild, it has allowed him to become a skillful hunter. But then we get down to Jacob. And it says that he's a, what does it say, plain man?
A plain man.
Another translation says he's a mild man. What does that mean? What does it mean to be plain or mild?
No, not the unusual.
You say what?
Not the unusual.
Nothing out of the, nothing unusual?
Yeah, nothing unusual.
Okay, you say not fussy.
Yeah, like you don't really.
It's
You're
temperament.
satisfied.
It's
Not
temperament.
easily rattled.
Not easily rattled. I like that.
Content.
Content. Okay? So the thing about when I see it, I look at the text and it's describing what Esau is good at. But when you look at Jacob, it is describing what he is. It's his personality. It's his character. It's his morality that they're actually describing. See, you don't really get that when you look at the English. But when you get to the Hebrew, it's a word there called Tom. And what that means is this individual is perfect. They're complete. They are of high moral caliber. This is also used, and you don't have to go there, but it's also used in Job 1:8, where, actually a couple of times in Job, where the Most High is describing Job. And he's describing him to the adversary, and he says, and he said to Hasatan, or he said to Satan, "Hast thou considered my servant Job? There is none like him on the earth, a perfect and upright man, one that feareth God and eschewed evil." This is talking about the morality of the individual here. So I found it interesting that with Esau, it only talks about what he's good at. But with Jacob, it's saying that he's good. But the narrative that I've seen pushed about Jacob, especially when you get into one of the first encounters of his story, of his dialogue, is what? You got your Bibles in front of them. Take a quick down at a few verses below. What is the first big narrative in Jacob's story?
Doesn't he say that Jacob deceived Esau?
Okay, so they said that Jacob deceived Esau. So how did he deceive Esau?
By pretending to be his brother.
By pretending. Now that comes later.
Oh, okay.
Let's look at the very first part of the narrative.
Esau sells his birthright.
He sells his birthright. I mean, once again, it's not a trick question. He sells his birthright. Now, what I have heard being said about him is that he took advantage of this person. You know, they try to cast aspersions on him. But then you have a contradiction in the text, because when Jacob is first mentioned, it talks about him being a perfect man. So when you begin to read, they've already established what type of individual this is, so everything should be filtered through that. So let me ask you this. How many of you smoke cigarettes?
You in the past?
No,
Right.
I like y'all. Y'all are good people. Y'all are good people. Now, it ain't nothing you can do that's gonna make me purchase some cigarettes from you. Ain't no way you can wrap them up. Ain't no propaganda that you're gonna be able to display that's gonna make me purchase some cigarettes from you. I'm not gonna take cigarettes. You can't tempt me with something that I don't want. That's not how temptation works.
That's true.
How does temptation work? It has to be something that's in you that's desiring this thing. And you're attempting to resist it. That's how temptation is there. can't be tempted from something you have no desire of.
Mhm.
So when you think about this, so he comes in, he just got done hunting. He comes in and says, hey, give me some of this red stuff. Some of this red stuff. Jacob sees an opportunity, so we can consider him an opportunist, but he sees this opportunity. He says, sell me your birthright. What was Esau's response?
What good is the person?
What good is this birthright?
Mhm.
I'm about to die. What good is this birthright? Do you really think he's about to die?
No.
If he don't get this meal right now, do you really think he was going to die?
No.
And do we also think that Jacob was here preparing food just for himself?
Nah.
No. For the family.
So something in Esau already known by Jacob that he don't see the value in the birthright. This individual he doesn't know what he has. So I'll take it. And for the record, it actually was not uncommon for people to sell their birthright in ancient days. This isn't actually an outlier. This isn't a statistical anomaly. This actually was something when you look into the Nuzi tablets and some of the other documents that are found in the ancient Near East, this was actually something that was legit. You could sell your birthright. They knew this. This is why there is no, I can't sell my birthright. No, he's like, well, I'm about to die. What good is this? And then he sells it. He's like, okay, let's make this oath. He makes the oath and he takes the food and then he leaves. You don't see regret. You don't see remorse. You don't even see him say like, oh man, you know what? I shouldn't have done that. He just goes. And the story goes on. But then the text says he despised his birthright.
Mhm.
So that's often read as if Esau despised it afterwards. That's not the case. This is the result. This is someone looking back at the tree, establishing and identifying what it is. When they see this man sell his birthright, because remember, this is being penned later. This is not being penned at the same time that it's occurring. So the author of the text is actually looking back what this divine revelation has been given to them, and he's saying Esau despised his birthright. That's not Esau saying he did it. That's the author. And when you find out what he means by that is he treated his birthright with contempt. He treated his birthright as if it was worthless. You see this word when in like Numbers when they talk about if you despise the commandments, then XYZ is going to happen, right? He treated it as if it was worthless.
Mhm.
It didn't have any value. This is the author identifying what it is. Does that make sense?
So however Moses seen this, because we know Moses is the author, however Moses seen it or it was revealed to him, he had to include it because he seen the fact that he despised it.
He's seen what was in Esau.
Yeah.
He's seen it. So he's letting you know. Because once again, Jacob's character has already been established in the beginning of the text, in the beginning of the narrative. His morality is already firmly established. You do not have to read into it. All you got to do is understand what the text is saying, look at the Hebrew words, and you know. What you got?
Was the exchanging of the birthright contractual or was it verbal agreement? How did they do
It could be both. An oath is just as good as a contract in ancient times, and that's why it says in the narrative
It's just
when Esau was agreeing to it, he says, "Make an oath."
It's spiritual.
Yeah, he says make an oath. Like these things were binding, but they also did do contracts at that time as well. But an oath is just as valid as a contract. Not today, but in that time, yes. So when I look at Jacob, some of the brothers heard me say this before, but we're going to go a little bit in depth on this, right? Jacob is the epitome of masculinity. How? How is was Jacob the epitome of masculinity? Why do y'all think I say that? Well, do we know how to identify what's masculine and what's not?
He's a hard worker.
You said he was a hard worker.
Years for Rachel.
Okay, I like that. She said 7 hard years for Rachel and didn't even get Rachel.
Yes, be careful.
Got to. So let's look at this tree that's bearing this tree known as Jacob, right? And let's look at the fruit and let's identify what kind of fruit it is. All right. So okay, we just talked about the birthright, and as she said, he served for 7 years. Each time. First time, he didn't get what he agreed to. Because Laban, or Laban, was a very sly individual. Quite manipulative. He's going to do what he needs to do to get out of Jacob, whatever he can get out of him. So let me get another 7 years. I'm going to give my daughter and say it's not customary. Which it may be true. That may be very true. But he knew what Jacob was getting into that agreement for, right? So he withheld information. That's called what? That's deceitful. That's deceitful. So just like these characters in the story, their nature, their morality is often on display. Sometimes very clearly, but sometimes you just, not long after coming in contact with them, you can get a real good glimpse of what kind of fruit they're going to bear throughout the rest of their story. All right? But with Jacob, okay, he was like, okay. And then he went on his earth another 7 years, and then he ended up with the 2 wives. He's a hard worker. You're absolutely correct. Why else would I say that he's an epitome of masculinity? If you can recall the narrative, what happens next? Oh, look, we gotta go back to read Genesis.
He replaced all the animals who died or got.
Correct. So they came into another agreement.
Right.
Right. They came into another agreement. And Laban created these stipulations, right? Jacob served. Y'all remember my lesson I did on commitment?
Yes.
Jacob established himself as a man who keeps his word. That he's a very committed individual. And if you want to know the manner of a man, you can tell by his commitment. How he holds to what he says. That is a telltale sign of a real man. Right? So what else? What else comes next? So they had this, he changed his wages, right? Let's keep that in mind. He served him, he changed his wages. They have this interaction when Jacob decides, okay, it's time for him to go. The Most High tells him, okay, let's roll.
Mm-hmm.
They have this interaction, and he tells him, I did this, and I stayed. I served in the heat of the day. He started going down all of these things to highlight his level of commitment to Laban, and yet here we are. Jacob encounters so much within his story. What's the next thing that happened? The next big thing that actually he encountered in the physical.
After he left the house? You saying after he left the house of Laban?
Yep.
But he came into covenant with Laban.
Yeah, he did do that.
Okay, then after that he met Esau.
Not yet.
With the angel, when he wrestled
Yes,
with the angel?
right.
He wrestled with the angel, but that doesn't show his character in there. We're looking at things that's showing the manner of man that he is. So the next thing that he comes across is his son, Reuben, goes into his concubine. How does he respond? Y'all don't remember how he responded?
He took away his birthright.
Not yet. In the moment, how did he respond? Because you have to look at how people respond to things in the moment. He didn't do anything. He stayed silent. He didn't get all super angry. He didn't get emotional. He didn't go and beat his son. He didn't tell him he was cutting him off. He stayed silent. Was it wrong? It was absolutely wrong. He violated his concubine. He now cannot even go back into her. Per Torah. He can't even do that. He can't even go back into her. But he stayed silent. He didn't respond emotionally. Right? Then he encounters Esau. Right? And what does he do? Last he heard that this man was trying to kill him. He sent him gifts. Now, he was trying to appease him. There's nothing wrong with that. Because they left on bad terms. They left on bad terms. Because you talk about him trying to identify as Esau to get the blessing. He's already got the birthright. Now he's trying to get the blessing. But who commanded him to do that? Was that just something that he wanted to do?
His mother.
His mother told him to do that. And so what did he do?
Said,
He obeyed his mama. He was being an obedient son. And not only that, in the story he shows, he's like, but what if he finds out and does such and such? And she's like, if he finds out and whatever is on you, put that on me. Whatever that curse is going to be, it needs to be on me.
so he cleared himself before he even commit.
Correct. So, whatever the outcome of that, he would have been clear. Remember, he's already been established as who he is. We breeze over that because the text says he was a plain man. Like he just wore simple garments or something. No. He was obedient. He was committed. He was under control of his emotions. He was a perfect and complete man. He's the epitome of masculinity. He was not easily moved. Are we reading the same text here?
Yes.
Okay, next story. His daughter. What happened to his daughter? She got raped. How did his sons respond?
Kill them all.
Oh.
With lots of destruction. With lots of destruction. I can't be mad at them. But Jacob is a different type of dude. He didn't respond. Matter of fact, the text says that when he heard about it, he stayed silent. He said his sons was in the field, so he waited until they came back. He didn't even say anything. And he tells them, and it says they got angry, they got upset. And then they dealt deceitfully with the men of Shechem and slaughtered them. And his response and all that was, you have made my name stink among the people. Because as a man, you have to know when to move, how to move, when not to move. So if he acted emotionally, as his sons did, because what he tells them is that we are few in number. If they come and gather together, they will wipe us out. Like, are you not thinking? It would be like one of you going into a crowd of people by yourself and then just slapping one of them and thinking you're going to be all right.
Good luck.
It don't work that way. You got to be wise. Even if the person that's disrespected you or did something to you is standing in that crowd, you got to hold your peace. Because at that point, you have the ability to be destroyed. And you may be right in your feelings, but if you move without thinking, you can lose your life.
Yeah, I was just thinking that David did the same thing with Tamar and his daughter, right? He didn't do anything. So I don't know if it's because they may be praying, the direction, or waiting to hear from the Most High. But when I was reading that account, I was thinking, he didn't do anything. So much similar.
Right, and see, to think about this is, and what one of the things I want to highlight is, you know, men would be like, yeah, I'm a man, and they're identifying, they're attributing their masculinity to something that they have come across, and it's not correctly being identified.
Identify with how they react.
Check this. Tell me if I'm wrong here. Everything that we just went over about Jacob, many women who would think that they want a masculine man
Uh-oh, make it plain.
would reject Jacob because they would believe that he's weak. He's soft. You let Laban take advantage of you. Your son then went in your concubine. Your daughter got raped and you ain't do nothing but flee. Your brother trying to kill you and you want to give him gifts? Nah, this man weak. This man is weak. Tell me I'm lying. Go ahead, ladies. Tell me I'm lying.
You're right about that one. I have questions. I will have questions. So.
Like it's the truth. See, a lot of women will try to get the man to react. And this is what actually brings a lot of men down.
Very true.
Because they are listening to the woman who wants them to react in a way that maybe they would react, but may not necessarily be the way that a man should react in a situation. Like we're two different types of beings. And we know this. This is not a knock on anyone. This is just the reality. A man has to be even keeled. He has to be able to think logically about, if I do this, this is the outcome. Right? It's like Job. Job, all these things begin to happen. What is his wife saying to him?
Curse God and die.
Curse God and die. Look at you. Enticing the man to react. But Job, just like Jacob, was considered the perfect man. Complete. So he was not moved by that. He was not moved by it. So as men, we have to be able to not be so easily swayed by things, people, situations. Right? We need to be like our father Israel, like our father Jacob. We're identifying ourselves as Israel. When will we take the traits of the man known as Israel? That's important. That is really important. Right? So when he encountered fear when dealing with Esau, he didn't react in a way like, y'all remember the Pharaoh in Exodus 1. When a new Pharaoh rose, and he's looked at the people of Israel and he said, they're outnumbering us. If they join our enemies and fight against us, and they get up out of here. So then that's what made them go into bondage. Because a Pharaoh came and he reacted out of what? Fear. See, Jacob experienced fear. He wasn't moved by it in a way that caused him to understand that Esau is coming. Let me try to harm Esau before he harms me. No, let me humble myself to Esau. Let me humble myself. This man bowed he gave all of these gifts. He bowed 7 times on the way there.
Yes.
So he experienced fear. He had to deal with it head on. But he didn't allow it to make him go off the path. Is this making sense? Any questions so far before we continue?
Do you believe that that Jacob or anyone that exhibits these characteristics, that they are at peace within themselves?
Absolutely. I would definitely identify that because it's a sign of self-control. And when you don't allow the external to bother the internal, that means that you are exhibiting a high degree of discipline / self-control. You have to be at peace with yourself. You have to be very self-aware. You have to be very self-aware, but in that self-awareness, you're not looking at yourself saying, well, I'm this type of person. This is just who you are. This is just how you move. It is the other people who will look at you and says, this is the type of man he is. I remember I had to introduce the brothers to some people when I was talking to them, and I had a sidebar. And I was like, yeah, man, that's a good man. It's like the way he approaches me and the way he addresses me is very humble. He's very humble in the way that he addresses me. But it was something that was very intentional in what I said. What do you think it was? He's very humble in the way that he addresses me.
You look up to.
You can say that. It's the looking up to me part. I'm not making an absolute about this man's character. I'm identifying what this man's character is to me. So when I say that he's very humble the way he addresses me, I can't say that he's going to address you the same way.
Correct.
But in my experience with this person, towards me, he has been humble. So I am identifying, as Hebrews, we have to be able to look at things and identify, categorize. This is this, this is this. You know, we got to live in the physical. You know, we can't be in the clouds. We can't be all abstract about everything. Y'all good?
Okay.
Y'all understand that?
Okay.
All right, so now we're going to move to the next portion of this lesson because that's how we can identify a man, a real man. Do any of you have any rebuttals against Jacob being the epitome of masculinity, according to what we just went over?
I told you he was perfect in all his ways to me.
You did, man. You said that in the beginning, but I got a lesson to teach. We got to walk this out. I can't just say that and then end the lesson, you know?
All right, that's it.
Mic drop.
Go to Proverbs 31. I love the book of Proverbs. I've made that very clear to everyone. It's a very practical book. I love practical books. It helps me walk this walk out better. The thing about Proverbs, this is just if you want to call it a fun fact. When you get to the portion when it's describing a certain type of woman, the way that it's written, first of all, is in Proverbs 31, there's 31 verses in chapter 31. And then when you get to the portion where it's describing a woman, each word, the beginning of each verse starts with the first letter or in order of the Hebrew alphabet. So the first word in verse 10 starts with Aleph, and then the first word in verse 11 starts with Beit. So I just thought that was very interesting. And it starts when it talks about the woman. All right? So tell me, give me your thought of the Proverbs 31 what?
Woman.
Wait, what was that?
Woman. Wife.
Y'all so Christian. Y'all so Christian. See, this is the thing. Just like with Jacob, right? We breeze over the part that says he's a plain man. When we begin to identify what he is. So, because you haven't properly identified what Jacob is, you automatically could begin to read other things into the text. You can find fault in Jacob when the author does not find any fault in him. So you look at the birthright scenario and say, oh, he tricked his brother, he did this. You look at the him obeying his parents, but omitting the part of obeying his parents and say, yo, he what is it called? He mocked his brother, or he disguised himself as his brother, and you find fault in that. But the author already told you he had no fault in him. So you don't identify exactly what it is that you're reading in the narrative, and you try to apply these things to yourself, you will automatically begin to misjudge your own self. All right? So, can I have my reader start at verse 10?
All right, Proverbs 31, verse 10. Who can find a virtuous woman? Her price is far above rubies.
Now back up. Now that word there in verse 10 says, who can find a virtuous woman? Once again, this is sort of a translation thing. The word for woman and the word for wife, it's the same. It's Isha. Isha. It's the same word. So certain times in the text, you don't really identify with who is who or what is what when you're reading from the English translation.
Okay.
So you don't need to learn the Hebrew, although if you could, great. But you got to be able to look into these things so you can understand the text better, right? So it says, who can find a virtuous wife? And I know we love the King James. I know we love the King James. But that is an incorrect translation.
James.
It is a virtuous wife.
Mm-hmm.
So because of that, we have women, uncovered women, attributing certain things to themselves that does not actually apply to them.
Mm-hmm.
All right?
Right at 11 it says her husband.
There you go.
I was about to
Context.
Teresa.
It's context. Absolutely correct. Go ahead and read verse 11.
Verse 11. The heart of her husband.
The heart of who?
Her husband.
Who?
Husband.
Her boyfriend.
Husband.
Her boo thing.
Husband.
Her sugar daddy.
Our baby daddy.
Husband.
Her husband.
Does safely trust in her, so that he shall have no need of spoil.
All right. Who can find a virtuous wife? Wife. All the single ladies,
Can be virtuous.
I thought you was about to bust out some beer or something.
I want to see who's gonna catch that. That's why I paused for dramatic effect.
Somebody's gonna pick it
Who's
up.
gonna catch that?
Oh, boy.
Some of y'all was a little slower. I know it's the Shabbat, but
I was with him, I just
so
sort of left you hanging.
so yeah, so single ladies, technically, you cannot be a virtuous wife. I mean,
This is a
this
contradiction.
does not work. Now, is that a problem? No, it's only a problem if you're miscategorizing yourself. If you are single, then what you do is you look at this
Okay.
as the template on what you need to adopt within yourself so that when you are hopefully arranged, and you haven't picked the man yourself, when you are arranged to your husband, then you already know what it takes to be the Proverbs 31 wife.
Mhm.
That's true.
This is how you read it. See, a lot of women have been reading this thinking, well, this is me, because, it's become a cliche, it become a buzzword, you know what I'm saying? I'm a Proverbs 31 woman. No, it's a wife. And it's okay if you're not a wife yet. But now you need to look at this from the lens to see that this is what I need to do, so when my time comes, this is what I can be.
That's good.
Now, married women, Verse 11 says, read it again for me.
The heart of her husband doth safely trust in her.
All right, stop. The heart of her husband safely trust in her. This has to be understood. This has to be understood. Why does it have to be understood? I'm glad you asked. If your husband does not trust you, then you are not qualified to be a Proverbs 31 woman. Why? See, I caught me slipping for a second. It's imperative because the very next line says that his heart safely trusts in her. It's this resolve that he has, this security that he feels with his wife that if he instructs her to do something, that she can get it done.
Okay.
It's this ease of spirit that says, my wife will not do me wrong. I don't have to worry about my wife committing adultery. I don't have to worry about my wife making my name look worthless. It says that the man will have no lack of gain. So the woman's efforts is for who?
Her husband.
Her husband. We got to read the scriptures with a true effort to A, understand, and B, to apply. Read it slowly. Read each word and meditate on it if you have to, so that we can understand exactly what's being conveyed. The heart of her husband safely trusts in her. He shall have no lack of gain. He knows that his wife is all about him. Any questions about that? All right, so let me say this. One of the problems with misidentifying yourself, especially as a Hebrew, is that you begin to heap titles and positions and status and platforms that you don't deserve or you aren't qualified for, right? The thing about it is, if we say we're supposed to be Christ-like, right? Like the Messiah. Well, let's look at the Messiah's words. Because the Messiah said in John 5:31, you don't have to go there, I'll read it. You can write it down though. He says, if I bear witness of myself, my witness is not what? True. If I bear witness of myself, my witness is not true. Going back to the tree example. The tree is an apple tree because you have been able to identify that it is an apple tree. The tree is just doing what it's supposed to do and being what it is. So men, when they get around greater men, those greater men will be the ones who say, that's a good man. That's a great man. Women, when they get around greater women, if you don't think women are greater than you, if you don't think there's any women are greater than you, then that's part of the problem. That's part of the problem. Men, if you don't think there's any man that's greater than you, that's part of your problem.
Okay.
Because it is those who are greater than you who will establish you and properly identify you, who will show you and be able to properly say, this is what I see in you. Because sometimes these same individuals who are greater than us can identify things in us that we don't even know is there. Good and bad.
True.
This person can look at you and say, I know you can do this. And you doubt yourself. It's happened with me.
Okay.
And you doubt yourself. Because you don't think you can, but the person Remember the vantage point that I've been talking about?
Okay.
The person with the proper vantage point that can see the entire scope while you're looking up and they're looking down and all of these surroundings can see, no, you're capable of doing this. But if you are only looking at yourself and trying to tell everyone what you are,
Uh-oh.
then you're never going to get to that point. Even the Messiah didn't do such.
That's true.
Who can vouch for you? Who can vouch for you?
Mhm.
What you got?
You're making a great point, Ray, because, in letting others speak for you, to servitude to one another, and loving your neighbor properly is how you are increased.
Okay. Okay, exactly. How you serve is how you will be served. Matthew 17:5 says, while he was speaking, behold, a bright cloud overshadowed them, and suddenly a voice came out of the cloud saying, this is my beloved Son, in whom I am well pleased. Hear him. He was just validated right there.
Mhm.
He never validates himself.
Mm.
Why are we always trying to validate ourselves? It's because you begin to move with this individualistic mind.
Mm.
So when you move with this individualistic mind, which is anti-Hebrew, it allows you to begin to conjure up these own assumptions and thoughts about who you think you are.
Mhm.
And then you operate in this manner of who you think you are with no one to correct you.
Mm.
Therefore, you actually fall short of your true potential.
There's a scene we always see in the Caribbean, self-praise is no praise at all.
You let another man praise you.
Okay.
Women, you let another woman praise you. Wives, your husband is supposed to be the one to praise you. You can't say that you're a good wife. That may be hard for some to take.
Absolutely.
But listen to what I'm saying. How can the wife, if we look at the order of the home, right? We've been going over this last couple of weeks. We look at that order. You got the father, you got the husband, you got the wife, you have the children, right? So how can the person under submission to the husband tell the husband what she is?
Mm. He has the vantage point.
He has the vantage point. He's above. He has the vantage point.
Absolutely.
So you can't say, it is to misidentify yourself to say what you are in reference to your husband if he has not validated that already.
You know, people make a resume, they put all these qualifications. I'm this, I'm that, I'm this, and then they call the previous job, like, man, that look no good.
Right. Always late, come on, consistent.
You're on point because I have a note on here to discuss that.
Oh.
It's very ironic that when you deal with an employer, like, think about this. So, in the workspace, because when we look at the marriage space, we something about us, like, we get it twisted. But there are so many other parallels that if we just look at, that you can make these same type of identifications. So in the workspace, you have the employer. So let's just say it's the manager, right? Because the manager has the power to hire and fire, right? So you have the manager, you have the employee, right? What does the employee look like saying, I'm a good employee, to the manager who is about to write them up? It makes zero sense.
Right, right.
The manager is the one who is setting the guidelines to the company, to the business, is giving the tasks and the duties that the employee must follow. And if the manager has been having issues with this individual, had to write him up, about ready to fire them, it is asinine to utter the words that you are a good employee. Because the one who is over you sees different. So a woman to a man, once again, this is a hard saying for some, But I think we got some mature women in here who can understand what's being conveyed. But the woman cannot tell the husband that I'm a good wife. No, the husband will tell the wife, you are a good wife. He would establish that. Does that make sense?
Okay.
Okay.
Why did the children of Israel, and I'm referencing Deuteronomy 31 right now. Why did the children of Israel feel comfortable in following Joshua?
For one, he was with Moses the whole time, and Moses told him.
He was connected to a great man, for
Yeah.
one. He was like the right-hand man of a great man. That's one, right?
The recommendation, he got, like, gave him a good recommendation from Moses.
Exactly. Exactly. Okay, so back to the job thing, and then we're gonna bounce back forward to this. So he brought up, on a resume joint. But it's a reason why they ask you for referrals.
Mm-hmm.
Not only that, it's a reason why on the application, they'll ask on there, is it okay if I contact your previous employer? Because you can't validate yourself. You can't do it. Those words mean nothing. It can give a general idea of what you think about yourself, but it can't carry much weight. This is why the Messiah says that if I bear witness to myself, my witness is not true. So John was sent to bear witness of him. Are we missing this?
Yeah.
So, as she said, Joshua was given a good recommendation by Moses. In Deuteronomy 31:7, it says, Moses called Joshua and said to him, in the sight of all Israel, this was the validation point, be strong and of good courage, for you must go with this people to the land which Yahweh has sworn to their fathers to give them, and you shall cause them to inherit it. He said this in front of the people. He put his stamp of approval on Joshua. So they felt comfortable submitting to this man because a greater man established that.
Yes. There had to be something as well when you see that everybody over that threshold age died except him
Correct.
and Caleb.
Correct.
So he had favor with the father as well. You can
Correct.
see it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Like you have Korah and his rebellion, the mutiny that he started.
Yes.
How did that start? Let's see if now we went through a couple examples and see if y'all can fully understand this. How did that start?
Because Korah didn't see, Korah saw himself as the greatest.
He tried to validate himself. This is what happened when men try to validate themselves. When they try to vouch for themselves. And it caused him and those who was foolish enough to listen to him to die. Because one man began to look at himself much higher than he ought. It's at Romans 12, verse 3. Let none of you look at themselves more higher than you ought. I'm not making this up, it's in the book. It's there. We can believe in ourselves as we should be able to believe in ourselves. But you need to establish yourself under submission to those who can actually lead you, guide you, teach you, and identify who and what you need to work on. Who you are, what you need to work on. Or you may end up like Korah. Validating yourself and causing people to die right along with you. Because when people get themselves, it's a great example of society today, especially the Hebrew walk, because you come in this Hebrew walk and, you know, people get in this walk 6 months and all of a sudden they're a teacher. They got a YouTube channel and they teaching people.
Regurgitating everything.
Regurgitated. All the YouTube videos talk about I've been researching. And you just memorize the stuff you've seen on YouTube videos.
And if I can add, you get the uncovered women, uncovered as in single, and their father's not on the walk, that get online and then correct men.
Absolutely 100% true. Absolutely 100% true.
And judge and try to make judgments.
Self-validation, because they don't have someone greater. They don't have a greater woman that they are heeding to guide them. So they validate themselves. They validate themselves. They go out and cause a lot of confusion, a lot of problems, because they're not submitted to anyone. Men go out 6 months, now they're a teacher somehow, and they cause people to fall away because they don't have anyone guiding them. They are vouching for themselves. You can't say, well, this person is my teacher, or I'm sitting up under this person, or this and this. They're not traceable. You can identify where they come from, who established them, who gave them this platform. Pastors from Christianity, bless their soul, opens up their eyes, come into the Hebraic walk. And now they think they can be a pastor in the Hebraic walk.
Contradiction.
Wrong. You gotta reset. This is not translated. It's like college credits. You know, your stuff ain't going to every college.
That's right.
You gotta start over. And you gotta put the work in. And you have to learn. You have to develop. And you have to mature. And there's someone who will be able to identify if these things are actually happening.
Okay.
But if you're just by yourself and you're walking in this walk with this individualistic mindset, you won't reach your potential, and you could potentially be a danger to someone else. Okay?
Okay.
All right. I lost where I was.
Verse 11, Proverbs 31.
Okay. Verse 12. Proverbs 31, verse 12.
She will do him good and not evil all the days of her life. 13 also?
Yep.
She seeketh wool and flax and worketh willingly with her hands.
Okay, stop right there. All right, so there is a notion amongst the community that the wives, by default, are not supposed to work. Let's talk about it. What do y'all think?
I think we can see the complete opposite in the scriptures.
Right, according to that verse.
She works hard. She's an investor. She has foresight. She's the opposite. She, will get there. She rises early. Like, she is a hustler, and it pleases her husband.
Okay, exactly.
Willing.
Whatever.
Hey, there you go. There you go.
Willing.
Look at the word.
That's true.
She works willingly
Willing.
with her hands.
Mm.
Couple verses above, her husband hearts trust her, and he will have no lack of gain. It's not talking about from his own hands.
Mm.
We know that they work. So let's clear that up.
The man.
We're not saying that the man is not supposed to, but I'm not saying that. Right. What I'm talking about is that the woman, if the man, because he safely trusts in her, and he knows that, hey, if I ask her to do this, she's going to do this. If I say, okay, I need you to work, I need you to work here, I need you to do this so that we can expand and do this, then she, because he has no lack of gain because of her, she will go ahead and do that. Now, with that being said, she's not doing it grudgingly.
Right.
He doesn't have to beg her. He doesn't have to plead with her. He doesn't have to convince her. The text, not Morea Mir, but the text says, and works willingly with her hands. So if he needs this, this is what she does. And if he don't need it, then she don't have to do it. But if it is needed, she doesn't fight him. She does it with a cheerful heart. She does it willingly. This is the criteria. Right? We're establishing the criteria. We're going to walk this out. All right? Verse 14.
She is like a merchant ship that she bringeth her food from afar.
Okay. All right, you good. Stop right there. So you got verse 13 says she works willingly with her hands. Verse 14 says she's like the merchant ships. Well, what do the merchant ships do?
They carry stuff.
They carry stuff. How? From afar. Thank you. So what are we saying with it? It wasn't deep, huh? It's not deep. She's willing to go wherever is needed. She's willing to go the extra mile to accomplish this. Right? Just like the merchant ship that's traveling across the seas, bringing stuff. She's willing to go the distance for her husband. Now, are you starting to see why this just can't be applied to just any woman? Because she's showing herself submitted wholly to her husband. She's showing herself fully submitted to him and whatever it is that he is establishing for his house. Right? Verse 15.
She rideth also while it is yet night, and giveth meat to her household, and a portion to her maidens.
All right.
She consi-
Not yet. Let's stop at 15 real quick. Okay, she rises while it is yet night and provides food for her household. What do you take from that?
She shall prepare a meal for us.
Okay. What else?
Her family.
I'm looking for a character trait.
Putting her on the needs of others.
She's putting the needs of her family above her. She's willing to sacrifice. She's going to prepare. She is preparing for her household. Once again, these things are all consistent. These all go into the verse that says, he will have no lack of gain. So the wife is being diligent. She's showing this level of diligence in her preparation to make sure that her household is eating.
Is it conditional or unconditional?
You say, is it conditional or unconditional?
Because I know that's what a lot of women do, being like this, positional.
It's good. I like that. It is supposed to be unconditional. Women have made it conditional. This is supposed to be an unconditional thing that when you decide, all right, once again, I'm going to say it the way that it should be done. So when you decide to enter into this courtship, you are already preparing yourself to understand that if I marry this man, that this is what is required of me. This is my duty. Independent of how I may feel. This is my job. This is what I must do. Your mind has to take that shape. It has to go into that direction. Before you ever decide to enter into a courtship or ever decide to get married, you should be thinking and preparing yourself with this state of mind. That this is what must be done for my house, and this is unconditional.
Okay.
If he makes me mad, I gotta do this. If he's not agreeing with me, I gotta do this. This is what you gotta do. And it's here in the text. This woman is a fully submitted woman. And she understands. And as we go on, she's not a rug, she's doing the dang thing. Verse 16.
She considereth the field and buyeth it, with the fruit of her hands she planted a vineyard.
All right, stop right there. She considers. She said he told her to go get some land.
Consider it.
This goes back into he's trusting his wife.
Yeah.
You know, he's given her the freedom to make decisions. Because this trust, he knows that she is going to do what's in the best interest of herself.
Of her husband.
Of her husband. She's going to do what's in the best interest of her husband. So she considers. She goes out, she finds, she does business deals. And then it says from her profits, she then goes in and does what? What does it say? A vineyard.
Planted a vineyard.
So she has this ability to maneuver, to operate. She has this ability. Where it's not just, she's just strictly following commands.
It's multifunctional.
She's multifunctional. Where she's capable. She's a capable woman. Say it with me. She's a capable woman.
She don't be just locked in no house, huh?
She ain't just locked in the house. Now, if her husband is making her stay locked in the house, it's not her fault.
Okay.
He is holding back his own household.
Hello.
But if that's what he wants to do, then
Yeah.
that is within his power to do so.
Hey.
I'm glad you said that. That's it within the man's power to say, no, I want you to stay here. But if your woman has this potential to expand your home, then what do you need to do? What is in the best interest?
And your home.
To let her expand your home.
You probably don't trust her if he won't let.
The
And
foundation.
that's usually what happens. You see how everything goes back to the very first part. His heart safely trusts in her. So if this is why I say, if you can't, and this was to the married women, if your husband can't say that, then you don't qualify for this. Because everything else is dependent on
The
that.
blessing.
Yes.
That's true. Very true.
Everything else is dependent on that.
Yeah, how did that work in ancient times when a man may have had more than one wife?
You trust
There's
God.
no
Trust
difference.
God.
Wife, concubine, how did they
Concubine's not a wife.
distribute responsibilities?
Well, each one will have their own role. So when a man has multiple wives, then he has a greater jurisdiction. So he has more that actually can be accomplished. So he can have one of them. See, in the ancient times, good question. In the ancient times, we see the shepherds. And we often see that the men often referred to as shepherds. But also there were women who would tend to the flock. When you look into the culture, when you hear about the threshing floor, when they're threshing the wheat, a lot of women was doing that. So if a man has more than one wife, he can be out hunting. One of them can be tending to the sheep. One of them can be on the threshing floor or the mill and grinding. Women just weren't at home sitting in tents.
Hello. Ah.
You know the whole saying about what's that? trying to find my Boaz.
Oh, Lord. My Lord, my Lord.
How did she find her Boaz?
Working.
Working.
Hello.
She was working.
She wasn't sitting in the tent.
She wasn't just sitting in the tent being cute. She was working.
Even with that story, a greater woman told her what to do. Go out.
Exactly.
And even in Proverbs 31, at the very beginning, it says the words of King Lemuel, the prophecy that his mother taught him.
Correct.
So none of these are coming from a man's writing. These
Correct.
are all
A greater.
greater women passing it down. Well, he's teaching his son how to identify a virtuous woman.
The mother is teaching her son.
Teaching her son.
Is teaching her son. Yo, this is what a virtuous wife looks like.
Right.
I'm glad you brought that up. A man didn't write this. Well, a man may have wrote it.
May have penned it,
But it's coming from a woman. It's not coming from a man. So clearly this is not a standard that cannot be kept because it's a woman teaching her son.
Okay.
This is what you should look for. Who can find this type of wife?
And can I say, of course you may want to elaborate, during a husband and wife looking for an arrangement, right? One of the things that if they have a son, if the man has a son, and the wife is present, one of the things that mother does is look at the foresight of that potential daughter-in-law by looking at that woman.
Correct.
So there are things that only a woman will be able to identify and say, well, I know that mother can process that daughter by doing this, which would be beneficial to my son or not. So this is where it all goes hand in hand functionally. And to your point, as far as multiple wives, maybe one wife can see one thing, in that potential daughter-in-law, and another one can see something else.
Blessed is he who would be able to have multiple virtuous wives.
Okay.
That means that he can expand and expand and expand.
Hallelujah.
Hallelujah.
This is what it is. Verse 17.
She girded her loins with strength and strengthened her arms.
Keep going.
She perceiveth that her merchandise is good. Her cattle goeth not out by night.
Keep going.
She laid her hands to the spindle, and her hands hold the distaff.
All of this is talking about work.
Mhm.
This is not a lazy woman. This was no lazy woman. Work. She was about her business. She was about her business. And in verse 18 where it says her lamp does not go out by night, you can draw a parallel with that when you look at the 10 virgins, right? Or what's the 10 virgins? Yeah, who had the lamps go out. So we know that the ones whose lamps went out were not what?
Virtuous, not wise.
They were not wise. They were not wise. They were not prepared.
We're not prepared.
You were not diligent in taking care of the things that you need to take care of. You didn't have the foresight or the preparation that's needed. There was something in you that was lacking. But this woman, she does not have that problem. The text says her lamp does not go out. So she's doing what she has to do. Is this making sense, y'all?
Okay.
This is how we gotta go through the scriptures. Each verse, break it down. What is it conveying? What can you extract from this? What fruit can we identify from each verse? Go ahead, verse 20.
She stretcheth out her hands to the poor, yea, she reacheth forth her hands to the needy.
So right here, she's exhibiting what?
Charity.
Charity. You say what?
Giving back.
Giving back. A compassion. If you follow the scriptures to the T, if you tithe every ounce of mint and cumin but you lack justice, mercy, compassion, then you are unrighteous. Because he said that these things ought to be done, just as the other ones should not be left undone. You need all of that. What good is you keeping the commandments? Because then you really have to look at yourself and say, are you really keeping it? Because it tells you how to handle the widow, the stranger, the poor. You got to look at that. So she's exhibiting compassion as well. Like, this is an ideal type of woman right here.
Okay.
Verse 21.
She is not afraid of the snow for her household, for all her household are clothed with scarlet. She maketh herself coverings of tapestry. Her clothing is silk and purple. Her husband is known in the gates when he sitteth among the elders of the land.
All right, so let's stop right there. Let me go back to that. Her husband is known in the gates when he sits among the elders in the land. Why is it significant? So her husband was a husband of stature. He had status, right?
Okay.
Excuse me. The gate is where the leaders of the city would actually meet. This is also where the marketplace was. This is where commerce took place.
Mm-hmm.
So he was there, which more than likely, being that she was working constantly, she probably was there frequently as well. So you can take from that, from everything that we saw, that this is an excellent representation, that she was an excellent representation of her husband. This is also where, and I'm going to read this for you. It says, at Tel Dan, that's in Israel, excavations inside the outer gate uncovered a raised platform for the canopied seat of a king or judge, as well as a bench for the elders. This arrangement illustrates the biblical description of legal cases being brought forth before the elders and judgments being carried out. To sit in the city gate among the elders represented honor. So this was a man of great honor. So going back to he safely trusted, his heart trusts her. She had to carry herself a certain way, or he wouldn't be sitting there.
Mm-hmm.
If she was disrespectful to him in public, then they'll look at him and say, his house is not in order. He can't be among the elders. He can't sit around us because he has these issues in his own home. So that trust right there, once again, everything went back to that, shows that she carried herself with a certain level of dignity. She carried herself in the proper way that a Hebrew woman should carry herself. And therefore, when people see her, they will most likely praise him.
Mm-hmm.
Is this understood?
Okay.
Any questions so far? We're almost done. Verse 24.
She maketh fine linen and selleth it, and delivereth girdles unto the merchants.
Mm.
Strength and honor are her clothing, and she shall rejoice in time to come. She opened her mouth with wisdom, and in her tongue is the law of kindness.
She opens her mouth with wisdom. I mean, the stuff that came out of her mouth was worth listening to. The stuff that came out of her mouth was worth listening to. She wasn't just spewing out whenever she felt like it. She wasn't just always trying to offer how she feel about this and that and this and that. She delivered her words, because wisdom is also, and not just what you say, but what?
How you say it.
And how you say it. So let's picture this, so that even if there was a disagreement between her and her husband, it says, she opens her mouth with wisdom. And in her tongue is the law of kindness. She's delivering the message or whatever it is to her husband in a way that it can be properly received. Because a lot of times men don't listen to the women, it's simply because how things are brought to them. Not that they don't want to listen, but how certain things are brought to them will cause them to harden their heart completely to whatever it is that the woman is saying. And the woman could be very valid in what it is that she's trying to convey. But you have to open your mouth with that wisdom. You got to know when to say it. You got to know how to say it. Men have egos. We have egos. If you come brash like a man, then we're going to respond in a certain manner. We're not going to listen. And I'll speak for the men. Because I'm sure y'all agree.
Hallelujah.
I'm sure. This is how it is. This is how it is. It's just honest. Okay, so now y'all know it's not just me that's saying that. Some of your husbands.
Soft words turn away the wrath.
There you go. That's wisdom. That's wisdom. Verse 27.
She looketh well to the ways of her household, and eateth not the bread of idleness.
All right, verse 27. All right, so look, listen. So a man can establish the plans for the household, and his wife can be that one to help him carry that plan out. His wife can also be the one that can give him the idea of the plan, and he can confirm that plan, and she can carry it out, right? There's multiple ways how this can happen, but at the end of the day, it is the ways of her husband. It is that path that he has either ordained for his house or agreed to. So the woman, it says, watches over the ways of her household. So if the ways of the household is going in this direction, she's making sure that the path is clear, that she is doing what's necessary to make sure that the plan isn't going to the left or to the right. She's watching over the paths, like the Most High said, the paths before us. So the paths before our ancestors, and they deviated from that path. But this path that the husband has set for this type of wife, she does not deviate from that path. When that plan is set in motion, she takes it full stride. And she makes sure that the children is following. This is the path. This is what we got to get done. And she will coach the children. Okay, come back over here. This is the path. Okay, I see you. Come back over here. She's handling this. You know, when the commandments was given to us, and this isn't Deuteronomy actually, he says that, you know, this is, I'm paraphrasing, but this is not something that you can accomplish. Christianity will tell you, well, you can't keep the law, you can't do this. But in the text it says this is not something that's just in the clouds, you know, that you got to pull down from heaven, or you can do this. For a man, right? We look at Jacob when we're dissecting how he responded, or his lack of response of certain things were actually perfect. They were complete. Being in so control of himself. The woman being sacrificial, giving up her will for the will of her husband. Man exhibiting self-control, the woman exhibiting sacrificial love. This is how it's supposed to be. Verse 28.
Your children rise up and call her blessed.
They rise up and call her what?
Blessed.
What?
Blessed.
What?
Blessed.
Okay, what's the next part?
Her husband also, and he praiseth her.
So, he's telling her, you're a good wife. You're great. You've done excellent. Good job. He's praising her. Because she has fulfilled the things that's necessary. Whether it was for a day, for a week, for a month, for a year. It has been pleasing to the sight of her husband. So he does what's proper and praise her for it. The children see that the mother is valuable. So they praise her. They say, I have a great mom. I love my mom. She can do this, she can do that. Even though they don't understand everything, right? They don't understand why sometimes they can't get everything that they want. But sure enough, they understand when they have a good mother.
Mm-hmm. That they do.
And the man will know when he has a good wife.
Hallelujah.
Hallelujah. Let's go ahead and go from 29 to the end of the chapter.
Many daughters have done virtuously, but thou excellest them all. Favor is deceitful, and beauty is vain. But a woman that feareth Yah, she shall be praised. Give her of the fruit of her hands, and let her own works praise her in the gates.
Let her own works praise her in the gates. Her own works praise her. Don't pat yourself on the back. Let the things you do cause you to be praised. Let your fruit, when the people identify, they can pronounce, she's blessed.
Okay.
She's great. That man, he's blessed. He has a great wife. Let another person praise you. Let's not think of ourselves more than we should. We have to remain humble in our approach to things, to people. We have to have this servant mentality that we're willing to help another person in whatever capacity that we can. And people will be able to identify yourself. People will be able to identify you. And they will do so. They will properly identify you. But you are not in position to properly identify yourself.
Okay.
Strive for these things. Strive to be righteous. Strive to be good. Strive to be, dependable. But it's going to be the eyes of another who will be able to confirm that. Not your own. Hallelujah.
Hallelujah.
Any questions?
You want to read that Proverbs 7?
What was Proverbs 7? I don't have it on here.
It's just the contrast between the virtuous woman.
Oh, yeah. I thought you were talking about verse 7 in chapter
No.
Yeah. Yeah, no, we're not going to do that.
Okay.
I don't think it's necessary. You're a trip. No question. Yeah, don't be the Proverbs 7 one.
Please.
Don't be the wicked woman. Don't be the contentious woman. There's these other descriptors about women in the book of Proverbs and in Ecclesiastes. You don't want to be those. Try to stick to this one. If you're married, try to stick to this one. If you're single, you now have the template on what it takes to be this type of wife. So adjust, recalibrate, and then move.
Mm-hmm.
Hallelujah.
Hallelujah.
All right. So if you want to donate, we have the cash box on the side of the wall right there. If you want to give through PayPal, the link is paypal.me/Torah Culture. If you want to use Cash App, it is $ Torah Culture. And if you're writing a check, please make the check out to cash. All right? Cash box over there. You got PayPal, Cash App, and if you're writing a check, make it out to cash. Okay?
Okay.
All right, let us pray.